Can the Denver Broncos offensive line bounce back in week 2 of the preseason? So, despite the Denver Broncos preseason week 1 loss to the Arizona Cardinals last week, 17-18, there was still plenty of positive things to take away, especially the performances of some of our younger reserve guys on the defensive side of the ball. Jordan Jackson, Elijah Garcia, Essane Bassi, Jaquan McMillan. Jaleel McLaughlin on the offensive side of the ball was a stud. Ben DiNucci played well. Russell Wilson overall played well. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy played well. But there were several concerns that you could also take away from our first preseason matchup, one of them being the offensive line. This week, the Denver Broncos are going to have even bigger of a litmus test in their second week of the preseason as they travel to Santa Clara, California to take on the San Francisco 49ers. So in this video, I just wanted to go over some of the top storylines to monitor in our second preseason game, as well as what to expect from some of the units that struggled in our first preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals. So this is a game where both teams' starting units are expected to play. Sean Payton confirmed that the Denver Broncos starters, for the most part, are going to play 20 to 25 snaps in this game. Now, as far as San Francisco is concerned, Kyle Shanahan hasn't given out an exact snap count, but it does appear that the San Francisco 49ers will be playing their starters on both sides of the ball. That includes their formidable defensive line, and that also includes the return of their quarterback Brock Purdy from his injury. This will be his first game action since the NFC Championship game, so that's a cool little side story to follow there. Now, as far as Denver is concerned, the first top storyline that I'm going to be monitoring from this game is, can the offensive line bounce back after having a really rough day out there against one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL in the Arizona Cardinals? Garrett Bowles in particular, we've talked about him plenty over the past week here on the channel. He's struggled in training camp coming off of his injury. His quickness and his agility just isn't there coming off of this broken ankle. And he's really struggled. He's had to rely on, just quite frankly, holding guys in order to not get beat. And that's a problem. That's a massive liability out there. Then at the guard position, Ben Powers and Quinn Miners definitely struggled out there. They weren't as big of liabilities as somebody like Garrett Bowles was, but Ben Powers allowed a batted pass on a beat, and then he also allowed a couple of other pressures as well. Quinn Miners failed to pick up a blitz and really struggled out there as well. And then stop me if you've heard this before, the right tackle spot has been an issue for the Denver Broncos. Mike McGlinchey suffered a knee sprain in training camp. He's not expected to play in this game. Cam Fleming did not play at right tackle in the first game. They elected to give the start to Isaiah Prince. In this game, I fully expect them to start Cam Fleming at right tackle. That's based on what we've seen out at practice over the last week. It's been, for the most part, Cam Fleming at right tackle, but whenever they've wanted to spell Garrett Bowles, they've actually put in Cam Fleming at left tackle, and then they've put in Quinn Bailey at right tackle. So that's something that I'm going to monitor there. With the 49ers, they've got an incredibly formidable defensive line that includes the likes of Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Javon Kinlaw, Drake Jackson. Nick Bosa is still in the midst of a contract holdout, so he's not expected to play in this game. But just their interior alone scares the living crap out of me. I'm terrified of the depth on this 49ers defensive line, and that's not even talking about all of the crazy depth they have at linebacker with Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. In the secondary, they've got guys like Charvarius Ward back there. I'm absolutely terrified of this 49ers defense. And so this is going to be a real test for the Denver Broncos offense. In my opinion, if the offensive line, save for Garrett Bowles' concerns, he's just, I don't know what to make of Garrett Bowles at this point with him coming off of his injury, but if the offensive line can look just a tick better than they did last week against a much stiffer level of competition, then I will be overall pleased with their performance in the 49ers game. The next top storyline that I want to monitor is that this is going to be the season debut for quite a few players for the Denver Broncos. The first one is Javonte Williams. I half expected Javonte to play last week, but I feel like Sean Payton wanted to hold him out given the questionable turf out in Arizona. This week, however, Javonte Williams is expected to see his very first game action since week 4 of 2022 against the Las Vegas Raiders when he suffered that multi-ligament knee injury. He has made an incredible recovery to this point. He looks pretty much 100% back in training camp. Now, Sean Payton said that he's not expected to see the full workload with the rest of the starters in this first game. Sean says that Javonte is going to play about 50% of the starting snaps, so that's going to be about 10 to 12 snaps. Now, I'm imagining that Javonte Williams is probably going to get somewhere from 6 to 7 carries out there. He might get a pass or two out of the backfield, and the Broncos are probably going to want to see how he looks in pass protection, so they'll probably ask him to pick up a blitz or something like that. That's the level of workload that I expect for Javonte Williams in his first game action back. And I want him to see how he feels after taking his first hit down in his lower body area. He has yet to take a real hit in training camp, so that's something that we're definitely going to have to monitor. And also, how does he feel the next day after the game? Does his knee swell up? Does he have any stiffness? Any of those kind of issues? So if Javonte Williams is able to shake off this first hurdle without having any of those setbacks, then that's a massive, massive, and I mean massive step for him in the right direction in his recovery. For the rest of the starting reps, I imagine we're going to see a heavy dose of Samaje Perine, of course, and they may even sprinkle in Jaleel McLaughlin for a rep or two. We're going to talk about him later, but he's seen some first-team reps in this offense, mostly because of some injuries, but also because of his elevated level of play that the team just cannot go without recognizing anymore. So, at the running back spot, not only is Javonte Williams making his return, but we also have got Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin to keep a heavy eye on in this game. The next big Broncos player that's expected to make their season debut is Marvin Mims. He is going to be playing in his very first professional game. The Broncos did not play him last week because he was dealing with a bit of a hamstring injury. This week, he's expected to see snaps both as a receiver as well as a return specialist. So I'm excited for Marvin Mims to finally get his feet wet, and Broncos country is finally going to get a chance to see Marvin Mims in game action. So Javonte Williams and Marvin Mims are the two big players that are expected to make their season debuts in this game. Pat Surtain is possibly another one. I haven't gotten official confirmation yet, I believe, if Pat Surtain is going to play in this game, but he practiced all throughout this past week after suffering a minor injury last week in camp. So that's a good sign for Pat Surtain for sure that he might get a few snaps in this game, but he's one of those guys that I'm not overly worried about playing too much in the preseason. Now, the Broncos are expected to miss a few players in this game because of various injuries. Justin Simmons, I still don't imagine is going to play in this game as he recovers from his mild injury. We've got Caden Stearns not expected to play, as well as PJ Locke. So those are basically 3 of our 4 top safeties who are not expected to play in this game. So expect K-Jack to see maybe more snaps than he initially would have. I'm also expecting guys like Delarian Turner-Yell and JL Skinner. Hopefully those guys will step up. I gotta be honest, right now, Delarian Turner-Yell is a little bit further along than JL Skinner is. So will these games be the opportunity that JL Skinner needs to maybe usurp Delarian Turner-Yell on the depth chart? But given what Delarian Turner-Yell is providing on special teams as well as a defensive back, that's going to be a hard sell for the team. Other players not expected to play in this game are a pair of former 49ers in K'Waun Williams, who's going to be out for the rest of training camp. He's hopefully going to be back out there for week 1, but that's not a guarantee. Mike McGlinchey also not expected to be out there for the rest of training camp. A big blow for the Denver Broncos offensive line, and 2 former 49ers players that aren't going to get the chance to go against their old squad. Tyler Beatty suffered an injury in practice a couple of days ago. It appeared to like his hand or his wrist or something like that, and so he's been held out for the past few days, which has really given Jaleel McLaughlin the opportunity to shine. I'm not expecting Tyler Beatty to play in this game, so we're probably going to get a really heavy dose of Jaleel McLaughlin. I've done a video on him already, guys. It seems that he is pretty much doing everything he can to hammer down that RB3 spot, and he's even seeing reps on the first team offense in Denver Broncos training camp. I don't necessarily know if we're going to see Jaleel run maybe more than a snap or two with the first team offense in this game, just because I don't think the team wants to give away their potential plans for him in the future. But I strongly feel like Jaleel McLaughlin has pretty much locked down that RB3 role for the Denver Broncos. An unfortunate injury timing-wise there for Tyler Beatty. Also, Riley Moss still down. Brandon Johnson still down, unfortunately. And then Chris Manhertz, he has been dealing with an undisclosed injury for a better part of camp. And that's something that's kind of flown a little bit quiet. Chris Manhertz has not been out there for a while, and Sean Payton has not talked about it. So I'm curious if Chris Manhertz will be out there at all for our third and final preseason game against the Los Angeles Rams. But those are some injuries that I definitely wanted to monitor in this game. The next big storyline for this preseason game against the San Francisco 49ers is, can Russell Wilson build on his overall positive performance against the Arizona Cardinals? It wasn't anything spectacular or amazing or anything like that out there against Arizona, but he played and executed at an efficient enough level for the Denver Broncos to win football games, especially considering the horrible pass protection that he had to deal with. So hopefully, if he gets a little bit better pass protection in this game, Russell Wilson will be able to make some more of those on-schedule plays, but he also looked pretty damn good off-schedule as well. But I'll definitely be monitoring Russell Wilson in this game to see if he can build another positive performance out there against an opponent that he's definitely familiar with in the San Francisco 49ers. With K'Waun Williams down, I'm also going to be keeping an eye on a couple of our young defensive backs, namely Essane Bassey, but also Jaquan McMillan. McMillan's mostly taken the spot of boundary corner, the main backup boundary corner, but Essane Bassey looks to lock down that backup nickel spot behind K'Waun Williams. And with K'Waun down, he's got the opportunity to do that. And we may also have to sprinkle in a little bit of Jaquan McMillan in the slot as well, just because of some injuries that we're dealing with right now. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Essane Bassey in this game to see if he can stack another big day after having a pick out there against the Arizona Cardinals. Keep an eye on Essane Bassey. I'll also be keeping an eye on Jordan Jackson and Elijah Garcia, two of our younger defensive linemen. Jackson and Garcia both were able to get pressure against the Arizona Cardinals. Jordan Jackson looked good in the run defense, and then Elijah Garcia looked really good on stunts for the Denver Broncos, where two defensive linemen basically cross paths with each other. And those are really, really positive plays for Elijah Garcia, where he ended up netting 2 sacks. So I'm excited to watch those two players in this game. I'm excited to watch Zach Allen, see if he can get his first sack of the preseason. Nick Benito should be good to return for this game, so I'm going to be watching him out there. He looked like a heat-seeking missile in the first preseason game. Same goes for Jonathan Cooper. Jaleel McLaughlin, we've already talked about him. He's going to be my big guy that I'm keeping an eye on in this game. I've got him written in all caps right here on my notes just because I feel like he's going to have a really big day against the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm really excited for Jaleel McLaughlin. And then finally, guys, we got to talk about special teams. We're going to be monitoring the kicking game in this one. I feel like this is going to be a much more fair evaluation for Brett Maher. Obviously, Elliott Fry suffered an injury earlier in the week and had to get cut. So now it's just Brett Maher as our sole kicker on the roster right now. Will he be able to have a bounce back performance on a much better playing surface? Also with a new long snapper, because there were some issues with snapping in our first preseason game. They brought in some competition for the long snapper, Mitchell Fraboni, and former UCLA long snapper, Jack Landhair. So I'll be monitoring that, and I'll also be monitoring Riley Dixon as the punter, because he had a couple of really bad punts out there in Arizona, and I wasn't exactly high on bringing back Riley Dixon to begin with because of his really poor stint with the Denver Broncos previously. So I'm definitely going to be watching Riley Dixon because I'm concerned about the state of our special teams unit right now. And I don't think it's a coaching issue because we've got some of the best special team coaches in the NFL in Mike Westhoff, Ben Kotwicka, and an up-and-comer in Chris Banjo. So I don't think it's coaching. It's just, I feel like, personnel. So if somebody like Brett Maher continues to struggle, look for the Denver Broncos to maybe bring in an outside kicker. All right, Broncos country, what are the top storylines and events that you're going to be paying attention to in our second preseason game against the 49ers? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support. Helps tell the old YouTube algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.